It says we're live. Hello, everybody. Let us know how things are. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm ready for some big fight talk.
Big punch-in action. We didn't thematically set it out this way, but we're going to be talking about the HBOMax newest releases, which are both fighting-based. We got Godzilla versus Kong. I think that's the order of operations. It's not Kong versus Godzilla, I don't think. And Mortal Kombat, which are ticking along at the bottom.
Do you think that there was a discussion over whose name gets first billed? There must have been, right?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's Godzilla versus Kong. I should look this up now. Godzilla versus Kong. It is Godzilla versus Kong. So
I guess because he has more movies, maybe in the new era.
Maybe, although it's a Kong movie, right?
Yeah,
I would say it should be Kong versus Godzilla.
I guess technically it's still it's a Godzilla sequel though, because the characters from the last Godzilla movie are in it. So I guess that would count
all
as
the
a
cardboard
Godzilla.
cutout characters from the previous movie have returned. They did not get wet in the rain. Hello, Matthew Ross. Hello, Joint Mango. Hello, Jason. How's everybody doing? We'll give it a few seconds till people check in. Godzilla is the king of monsters. He is. Were you a big Godzilla fan growing up?
Not particularly. I don't think I've ever seen a full Godzilla movie outside of the original one. I've seen all of the new ones, and I enjoy him as a concept.
You didn't see Godzilla versus Gigan or Godzilla versus Mothra 1, 2, and 3.
No, it was one of those things where, like, by the time I came to it, I was too old to appreciate how old they were, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it looked kind of silly to me, and so it never really did anything for me. But I wouldn't be against going back and checking some of them out. I'm sure they probably are very dated at this point, but the original is fantastic. The original really holds up.
First one's good. It does hold up. Jason said he just watched it a couple weeks ago. Evening, Tarek.
I think all the sugar in my drink sank to the bottom of the cup.
What was I going to say? I used to watch all the Godzilla movies religiously when I was younger. I don't know why. They're
fun. There's cool, fun content.
They're fun. You when you're a kid, you spend 85 minutes waiting for the fight, and then the fight comes, and you're like,
right.
Okay, this is good. So,
yeah.
But I don't remember anything as far as I could tell. They maybe just cut the exact same character stuff out of every movie and put it into different order, and like, here's a new different fight to be having.
I think it was probably similar to my reaction to James Bond when I was a kid, where at some point I was like, man, James Bond sounds awesome. I want to watch all the James Bond movies. And then I watched one, and I was like, this is really boring.
It probably is. If you were to go back and rewatch them, I think you'd be bored to tears after a couple of them, probably.
I heard Shin Godzilla is very good.
Yeah.
The one that came out a handful of years ago. That's the one I'm trying to see.
Yeah, he's we don't have to start with Godzilla. I guess everyone's in here. There's enough people in here where we can actually start the conversation now. Hello, everybody. Evening to everybody who's in here. RX2, Hawkrest. I don't know if we have a preferred order of operations. We can talk about these two movies, and then we can have like a general Q&A, but people can chime in, obviously, if they have anything to say about these movies.
Sure.
You watched both of them. You watched them before I did. You saw one of them in the theaters.
Sure
maybe
did.
Two, or just one?
Just one of them.
I watched both on TV, both on the street, and I watched one on my iPad, the way that all movies are meant to be watched, and I watched the other one.
Please
on
tell
my
me
TV.
at least it was Mortal Kombat you watched on the iPad.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Mortal Kombat.
yeah, because I wasn't expecting Godzilla versus Kong to be any sort of like grand cinematic achievement, but given the movie that it was, I absolutely refused to watch it at home if I didn't have to, and luckily I could go to the theater because I was all vaxxed up. Not that it mattered because there was 5 people in the theater. So
I think Godzilla. I do not have an HDR capable TV. But I was watching the Godzilla Kong movie, especially during the Hong Kong fight, going, I wish I had an HDR TV because I think this would be a movie where, because everyone who everyone with those TVs says they can take it or leave the 4K. They don't really notice it, but the HDR is what makes the difference for them, which is just the high dynamic range of lighting. So the blacks are blacker and the lights are lighter. The colors are brighter, basically. Sure. A lot of neon in that Hong Kong scene, basically.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was much better than the last one, where they just turned Boston into a swirling mass of gray rubble with the Citgo sign.
Was that the King of Monster? I watched some clips of the King of Monster one, and every fight is like a dust storm, and the monsters with like lightning in the background. It's like, this is awful. Who the fuck wants to watch this?
This one got. I can't even tell you how many more points over the last one, just because you could actually see what was going on, and it didn't just look like two monsters fighting in a dust cloud.
Yeah. Do people have any strong thoughts about which one we start talking about? I'll give you 10 seconds to chime in with it. I don't really mind either way. Both of them are on HBO Max. Both of them are going to be gone shortly. Kong might be gone in a day or two, and then Mortal Kombat will be around for another month. It's part of HBO's strategy of releasing their movies because no one's at the theaters at this point, so they're going to release them on TV.
Didn't look into this very deeply, but I heard that Snyder's Justice League didn't bring in as many people as they thought it was going to.
On HBO.
Yeah.
And maybe this will make more sense as we get into these movies. So the first one I saw was Jason, who said Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
We can start with Godzilla. That's fine. That's the older one, right? It is the older one. So,
yeah, as in the way that one twin is older than the other one. Yes.
Godzilla. I thought the Godzilla movie was better than the Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, 100%. 100%. No argument from me.
I don't really I don't have a lot of thoughts. I probably have less thoughts about the Godzilla one than the Mortal Kombat one. I thought that I thought it was serviceable, yet maybe it even doesn't even work to talk about the film separately because they're kind of similar and I have a lot of thoughts that trace over them. But they're both movies that just strike me as of this era. This is what movies look like now. Which is to say, I heard some other podcast talking about it. I'm just going to steal the idea. They're now just foreign market movies that are made, and China in particular. Mm-hmm. And they all fit that mold of being palatable to a Chinese market, which is going to give you half the money that you're going to make off of this thing, which is to say cardboard characters, the barest of plots that can't be lost in translation. There's like no problem with understanding what's going on. Even if they didn't translate the movie, Chinese audiences would be able to watch this and go like, I understand what's happening on the screen right now. Mm-hmm. Big action, cardboard characters, looks okay, decent, and also not provocative in the least. Like there's no the Chinese state media is not going to ban your movie because
I don't know, man.
Because of this.
Hollow Earth is a pretty provocative concept.
It is a lot of Chinese YouTube tubers talking about it. But yeah, it's in direct contrast to like that. The woman who won the best director for Nomadland is a Chinese, originally Chinese, and came to America and had very bad things to say about China. And then China censors her, so they don't allow a mention of the movie or her. But this is the opposite. Both of these movies strike me this way. They're meant to be foreign market movies, and I feel like 90% of the movies I see now are this way. There's just no money in not doing that for it, and they both strike me as very similar in that they held my attention, but I'll never think about them as soon as the stream is done.
Sure, yeah. I would say between the two of them, I would probably be more likely to go back and revisit Kong vs. Godzilla or Godzilla vs. Kong. And by revisit, I mean just watch the Hong Kong fight sequence. Because it was fun. I think Godzilla for me it was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was as advertised, as they say. Godzilla did verse Kong, and it was fun to watch, and the human stuff was whatever. The Hollow Earth thing was as ridiculous a side plot as you could possibly have, which I loved. And then Mechagodzilla, spoilers, shows up, which actually had me do this in the theater because I wasn't sure that it was going to happen. But as soon as they said the thing about blah 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 cybernetics, I was like, oh, I know where this is going, because they can't both be bad guys, or they can't both be good guys. You need a heel in this match. But no, I know what you mean. They're both fairly forgettable, all things considered.
I couldn't tell you anything about what the plot is of the human stuff in the Godzilla vs. Kong movie. It's just like washed over me. I understand going to Hollow Earth and things like that, but I didn't understand what the mad scientist who built Mechagodzilla was after. I don't know why there were so many characters in the movie, like the crew that breaks into the Mechagodzilla lab. There's like 7 people in that group, but it's like, I don't need all these people here. What's going on? They're all just to stretch it, like across the 2 movies, the only character I'll ever remember is Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Sure.
Like, he's the only character who I was like, this guy is actually doing something in this. All the Godzilla characters, and what's shocking is that you're like, they got the guy from The Wire to do 2 seconds worth of scene in this. Like, why? Why is he in this movie? And then they have Kyle Chandler in there for 5 minutes, and it's like, why is Kyle Chandler in this?
Well, he's
in the previous movie, but it's like, what a waste of time. Yeah. Those characters are just so forgettable. Kong and Godzilla are good. Kong actually feels like a character. And I will say that the Kong and Godzilla did succeed in giving me one emotional moment, which the other movie did not give, which is that when they finally team up together against Mechagodzilla, I was kind of like, oh, that's touching. Like, because Godzilla's getting his ass kicked in for about 5 minutes before King Kong resurrects himself and gets over there to help him. And you're like, oh, I feel bad for Godzilla. And then King Kong helps him.
He does my favorite part of the movie where he uses a building to pop his shoulder back into the socket, which probably killed 150 people, but they don't even bother talking about.
My favorite thing about the Kong and Godzilla fight sequences are that, so they'll be fighting, and they've been fighting for 10 minutes in Hong Kong. Like, buildings are being shattered. Then they'll sort of throw each other into another building, and the camera will cut to inside of that building looking out, and the people are all just getting up from their dinner table as if they have not been able to realize that 2 giant monsters are fighting outside where they can see it. Yep. Every time they cut to the interior of the building, people are reacting like they have no idea what's going on, and they all get up and try to like leave out the exit before the building collapses on them.
Yeah, which, I think it doesn't bother me because you want to see people running away from the monsters. You can't run away if they've already run away,
They should be in a more advanced state of running away. Like,
sure.
There's only so many stairs that you can fill the building with or whatever. But outside of that, I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't mind the fight sequences with Kong and Godzilla. I think it's pretty good. At a certain point, you get dangerously close to I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like the fighting between the 2 monsters becomes too martial arty, like with a lot of like headlocks and stuff. And you're like, I don't know about this. Like, the more I have to think about this, the less sense it makes. Yeah.
When I know exactly what you mean. Like once, although they've always kind of leaned that way, because you got a guy in a suit and eventually he starts like throwing karate chops and stuff.
He spins them above his head and stuff like that. But
they've always been one step. Yeah, it's always been one step away from pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I thought the physics that they followed was hilariously questionable. Like, you've got the 2 of them smashing into each other as these 2 gigantic titans, and then Kong starts like jumping between buildings like he's in a video game with no issue. I mean, whatever. If that stuff is going to bother you in King Kong versus Godzilla, I don't know what to tell you, honestly. But it's I remember the non-fight stuff in Kong versus Godzilla way more favorably than the stuff in Mortal Kombat. Basically, any time in Mortal Kombat where they weren't fighting, I was looking at my watch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because at least in Kong and Godzilla, they were trying to, they gave you like surface level modern movie characters that were trying to be quippy, or at least trying to keep your attention up a little bit. You got the guy who's the conspiracy theory podcaster, who was fun.
I took that as an attack on myself.
You get the evil corporation guy who's, I'm not totally sure why they were trying to get to the Hollow Earth, but something because he wanted Mechagodzilla to be the only Titan, because it was honestly, his plot was essentially the beginning of Pacific Rim is what it was.
Sure.
Because his whole thing was, we need a equal combatant to prove that we are dominant, or blah blah blah. That we can fight these Titans.
Line about humans are on top of the food chain again.
And
or something
it was also a telekinetically controlled robot, like in Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
That was fine. The Hollow Earth thing is whatever. I thought it was interesting, and I don't know if I've ever seen them actually depict Hollow Earth in a movie before, so that was fun.
Who built all that stuff?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Is that Kong's handiwork?
I guess.
Yeah.
Or like the Kong people.
Yeah, the Kong species. Like,
yeah,
they live down there. Yeah.
Because they did a lot of very humanistic architecture.
Yeah, and it was his handprint on the door to open the door too.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
So I mean, he learned sign language. So who says he can't?
Right.
Who says he doesn't have any design sense? Yeah, and that stuff was fine. The spending 45 minutes and developing a multi-million-dollar spaceship to deal with the influx of gravity to get to Hollow Earth, and then in order to get back, as I'm watching this, I'm going like, how the hell are they going to get back? There's a fight going on. How are they going to get back for the fight? And Godzilla just laser breaths a hole into the center of the Earth, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, I don't have a problem with any of that, because again, it's the movie that you're watching. It's not There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. It was what I expected. I think that one thing that Mortal Kombat has over it, at least, is that when your combatants in the fights are just two very large monsters, you're kind of limited with the palette of what they're allowed to do with each other. Like they do every version of getting punched and spinning the other one in a circle and throwing him that you can do in this movie. Eventually they give Kong an axe and he's able to like swing an axe at people, but it lacks the choreography that you can get away with in Mortal Kombat, which is kind of one of the more interesting things. Like I don't mind the fight sequences in Godzilla versus Kong, but it's definitely less visceral, just because it's another two giant things bumping into buildings constantly, and you just kind of lose the punch a little bit. It was fine when they teamed up, but outside of that, you lose the sense of scale that you're supposed to have is no longer important at that point.
Yeah, that's why I think the first of the new Godzilla movies is still the best one, and I know a lot of people, crap on it because he's not in it that much, but like, what do you want? They're playing him like the shark bit from Jaws, basically, and what that movie does really well is gives you a sense of scale of Godzilla and the size of the things that are going on. It does that really well in that movie. Whereas as it goes on, it's like again, also like in the traditional ones, it just eventually just turns and you're here for the fight,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it left me wondering. I was there for the fight and I enjoyed it. I just wonder, like, even as a kid when I was watching the old Godzilla movies, like, what was I there for? I suppose like, it's going back. I don't really understand what the draw is, but I'm still. Maybe it's just some sort of like primitive human thing in your brain, like
it's just
like
spectacle.
Caveman. Yeah, just the spectacle of it. But
it's a sideshow attraction. It's a giant monkey fighting a giant lizard.
Yeah.
I'll pay 25 cents to see that on the side of the road.
Kong and Godzilla didn't do anything bad, really. It's just, I still have a hard time thinking of it as a monster universe or whatever. When they try to make these things an MCU type universe, it doesn't really work for me. I don't know why. It seems strange.
Excuse me. I think part of that is there's just like a certain strain and credulity of the fact that there are 10 to 15 of these things just all existing on the planet at the same time, that I don't know. When it's just sequels and it's like, oh crap, this time it's a giant moth. It's like oddly more believable
Yeah.
than if it's like what they posit in the last one, which is like, at all times, there are 7 godlike beings all on the earth that will eventually break free and fight each other for supremacy. It's like, okay, well, how has that affected everyday life? You know, that would be like,
Right. Yeah.
like if they really wanted to impress me, Kong versus Godzilla would have shown the human stuff in a way that was less, hey, we're humans watching these things fight each other, and more, how has this revelation that these things exist and are out there affected day-to-day human life? What's up with Boston? Is that just now like a parking lot?
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's no, for something that is the consistently in these movies, they keep making the greatest discoveries in the history of humankind. They have zero weight.
That's the that's the foreign market aspect, right? Like
Right,
it's
yeah.
too big of an idea. You can't do it. There was another podcast I was listening to that I thought made a really good point about that, where because of how you have to simplify it for the foreign market, things like Marvel is very aware of that. So why did they call the snap the blip now? Is that like a new thing, a new terminology for it? It's called the blip, right? Where the 50% disappear.
Yeah, I think in universe it's referred to as the blip. Yes, I think.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
So I mean, one of the, and maybe it even goes back to why I had a problem with like the Thanos idea right behind this, is that Marvel can't do a leftovers-esque take on what the blip would actually be, right? So like in the Marvel universe, the blip is 50% of the population disappears or whatever. And this podcast just made the good point of like, we had a COVID scare this year that shut down a tiny fraction of that, right? And a lot of stuff falls apart when just a tiny fraction of the workforce or whatever can't do it. 50% would be like catastrophic, like the world would fall apart basically. But it's not really, Marvel isn't interested in that story. It's not looking for a leftovers type story, even though I think that one of the prime like Disney stories would be post blip leftovers-esque action. Like, what does this mean for people to have this gone? What did Thanos' thing actually do to people? And I don't think they have to make every movie about that, but the point is, it's just, they have a big event like the blip or the Titans fighting for supremacy, but you can't really think about what this means. It's just kind of the setup for it, and it leads to an emptiness of the concept in some ways. It's like there's nothing interesting that really makes you think, oh, I remember that, or that was a weird, interesting take, or that's why Thanos' thing was so devastating. Not just because Falcon was gone for 2 hours of one of the movies. Like there's actually an outcome to it.
Well, I mean, in fairness, they do deal with that a bit in Endgame at the beginning before they go back. They obviously don't have time to do 5 movies about it, but they are kind of doing that now. Afterwards, they're kind of dealing with the fallout of bringing everybody. I mean, the entire narrative thrust of Falcon and Winter Soldier is based on what happened now that half the world's population have suddenly returned again, and how that throws the socio-political whatever into chaos.
Is that? But is it just set up? Or is that what people are talking about? Is it just something that's happening, or is it what the show is about?
It's part. Yeah, it's what the show is about. Yeah, it's part of what the show is about. I think the plot in Falcon and Winter Soldier is probably the weakest part of the show, but even there, the stuff that the themes and concepts they're dealing with are fairly strong.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll pop
and
this. As you talk, I'll just pop up because people are chiming in with the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think to a certain extent that's to be expected. I don't really know. I don't know, like what large scale franchise would really dig deep on that stuff in a way that would be satisfactory.
Yeah, well, I don't know this, but I would imagine like the comics themselves would be better at it than the movies would be. Because
sure. Well, you get
could
the time. Yeah.
Yeah, at the time of doing it. I think that like for the Kong and Godzilla thing, if there was a subplot that touched on like humans living in fear of these titans constantly in a way that wasn't just them going like, oh my God, they're here and they're fighting.
Right.
That would actually make me remember the movie, because then I'm not just waiting for the fight sequence. It's actually like, oh, there's something actually kind of interesting simmering under the surface, but they don't do that at all, really. And that would be the way that I would escalate these movies. And I know why they don't do it. It's just kind of disappointing that it never gets to that point.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think that's stuff that's left out, but yeah, I don't know. I think with a movie like this, it comes down to like, who gives a shit, really?
Yeah. And I'm putting
like,
too
it would
much
be
on
great. I would love like a tightly written, well scripted Godzilla movie. And I've heard Shin Godzilla is actually kind of goes that way, where a lot of it is like about the bureaucracy around what Godzilla means as an existing thing, which is apparently very good. But yeah,
could have it could be it's symbolism for just because it's on the new, like COVID. You know, it's this the bureaucracy can't get in the way to stop Godzilla, and it's some sort of symbolic commentary like that, but it just never happens. And maybe we're in the extreme minority of people who would want that. I just it always feels like it's ripe for that stuff. And I think one of the best regarded Godzilla movies is the one where he fights the sludge monster, because it's about like pollution in the state of the world.
Okay.
Yeah, so
getting revenge for Tasha Yar.
Yeah, it still has the goofy sludge monster fight in it, but at least it feels like it's kind of trying to do something.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that would be ideal, because Godzilla is born out of social commentary. You know,
right?
It's reaction to the atomic bomb and all that kind of stuff. But it's clearly far removed from that at this point.
Not really what I want from the franchise. Like they do explore, don't get too deep. I might have missed what the point was, what they were talking about. So Mortal Kombat, I suppose. I'm just going to segue into that. It was much worse. It was worse than Kong and Godzilla. You can start this one off. I've talked enough.
My issue with Mortal Kombat is the whole movie felt like the opening cinematic sequence of a video game. Like the thing where you learn how to do the moves in a manufactured training sequence that you do before the game starts.
A dummy character.
And like even the end of them, it even ends that way, because I'm watching this movie going like, when the fuck does the tournament? They've been talking about the tournament. And I understand, I saw somebody point out, like, oh, apparently people were checking their phones and they didn't see that the Shang Tsung was cheating. So no, I saw that part. But nobody's coming to see Shang Tsung cheat. You know, the point, the fun of Mortal Kombat is the tournament, and they talk about the tournament at length in the movie. There is lots of convoluted lore about the tournament and what the tournament means and all this kind of stuff. And then they don't do the tournament, and then they get to the end. And they basically go like, so next time we'll be ready for the tournament. I'm like, I don't give a shit about next time. It's like if they did Bloodsport, where they had 40 minutes of backstory on Kumite, and then they don't actually do Kumite because they decide to cheat and go around it, and he fights Bolo Young in a barn behind his house. And it's like, well, you're kind of burying the lead on your concept here a bit. I'd much rather see a fighting tournament movie than watch 40 minutes of learning how to do a sweep kick.
Yeah.
And then we don't have any money, so all of these extra dimensional fight scenes are going to happen like in a gym and behind the guy's house. I don't know. Like the fight scenes were cool. Kano was great, but like it just never got going for me. It just kept in second gear, and then by the end of it, you're kind of like, oh, all right, okay, sure.
Yeah, I was surprised by. I was quite let down by the fights in Mortal Kombat. Some of it was okay, like the blood into an icicle is
fantastic.
neat,
yes,
and stuff like that. And they directly lifted the hat guy's fatality, where he sort of runs him down like a buzzsaw thing on his hat. That's cool. But in general, I was let down. I think it's just they're clearly trying to build a Mortal Kombat universe because everything has to be a universe now. So they're building a universe. This is the prequel where they're going to explain stuff. I don't know. I haven't played any of the recent games. I don't know if Mortal Kombat is deep enough for a universe to happen because the tournament is easy to understand, and the tournament is the focal point of everything. And if you don't have that, you have a sequence where you're going to explain the ancient rivalry of Scorpion and Sub-Zero without actually explaining what their rivalry is about. It just shows that they've known each other for a long time.
There's literally a point at the beginning in that scene when Sub-Zero kills Scorpion's family where Sub-Zero's talking to him in Chinese saying, and now finally the last of your clan is dead. And Scorpion goes, listen, man, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't speak Chinese.
But I will avenge my
So he doesn't even know. What's the point of having a grudge if the other guy doesn't know why you're killing his family?
It reminds me of the South Park joke where they have the Chinese guy who owns the Chinese food restaurant, and then they have like a Japanese character.
Oh, right.
But they both talk to each other in that very exaggerated Asian accent, but they can't understand what the other one is saying to them. It's a good joke. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you create that backstory because it's not even interested in the backstory. It's like you don't know why they're at odds with each other besides some sort of like ancient clan dispute that goes on back centuries or whatever. And it's like, well, I didn't need to know that. I just assumed they just hated each other because they're in this blood murder tournament where they're going to try to kill each other, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it enough. Like the scenes were cool enough, but there was, I don't know, there was a lot of goofiness that wasn't really sitting well with me. Like it's very difficult to take even remotely seriously when Shang Tsung is addressing his ice-based ninja friend and he uses his Chinese name and then he goes, "No, my name's Sub-Zero now." Okay.
Also, this Shang Tsung is a worse casting than the 95 version.
The 95 guy is awesome.
He's great. He's a
fantastic. They should have just got him again. He was amazing.
This guy looks like he does open mic comedy on the weekends or something. This new guy that they've got going.
Also,
he's terrible.
Hot take. I'm sorry to say it. Christopher Lambert was a better Raiden.
Yeah, he's a better. This guy is just generic Asian guy.
I watched a good portion of the original when I got home after I watched the remake. Most of it doesn't hold up. The fight scenes in that movie are atrocious.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, Shang Tsung, highlights of the movie.
I mean, Kano's far and away. There's two characters who stuck out. Kano's far and away the best because that actor seemed to be the only actor who was aware of what kind of movie he was making. And he's like,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, he's aware. He's like, this is supposed to be ridiculous, and I'm going to be ridiculous in this movie.
He's the only person who had lines.
Yeah,
like he's the only person who had fun things to say.
Apparently, he is heavily improv background. That actor
doesn't surprise me. Yes.
So it's a lot of his stuff was ad-libbed, but it added. And I'll get into the deeper point. The other thing is Cabal kills me because Cabal is this. Cabal is a guy with a New York accent who curses 5 times more than is necessary in a sentence. Like Shang Tsung is like, Cabal, why don't you go down and kill someone? And he's like, fuck you, cocksucker. Okay, bye, motherfucker, cunt. And then leaves. And it's like, why is he swearing so much? It's unnecessary. He's completely swearing over the top. He stuck out to me just because of that. He's just a feisty guy, I guess, who's got a lot of attitude.
I will say, the movie was almost ruined for me because I was like very close to only seeing Kano as the manager from Flight of the Conchords. Yeah, because he had a very similar kind of like that sort of Australian, New Zealand kind of, and kind of a similar look. And so, like, I was like, oh, man, if I get that locked into my head, then I'm never going to be able to take any of this seriously. But he was great. It doesn't surprise me that if his stuff was improv, because it's the best lines in the movie.
yeah, far and away. No, he's worse than Al from, at least Deadwood swearing is, like, purposeful. This guy just swears all the time for no reason. It's one of those weird things that's like, I'm not a prude, and I can understand him swearing, but the swearing, it's like, clearly when they were writing the script, like, this guy's going to swear. He's going to swear a lot, and we're just going to put these things in. Anyway, Christian says that there wasn't enough camp in this new one. I talked about this on the Discord. I'll say my problem with this one conceptually, besides the fact of all the other things that I leveled at King Kong and Godzilla, which is that it's not marketed for anything but foreign markets. It was or designed for foreign markets. Mortal Kombat this is one of these disaster in tone things where this movie is trying to be cool. And coolness is very unique. And however you want to define being cool, it's a very difficult word to define, but you know cool when you see it. But cool people don't try to be cool. You just are cool. It's like the key to being cool is to not be trying to be cool.
Right.
And this movie is just trying to be cool, except for Kano. And that's why Kano works. Kano's the only one who's like, this is not cool. You don't need 17 other characters just acting like hard, cool, badass, like, like act like a cool badass and just like glare at each other. Kano's the only one who's not doing that, and that's why he sticks out. And this concept is not edgelord cool stuff. Like, the concept is goofy. The whole thing just has to be goofy. You have to play with some type of like over-the-top broadness to it. The villain is stealing people's souls after they fight in a hand-to-hand combat thing. It's like, I think that's the
original one. They play it like dead straight.
Yeah.
And it's goofy because it's goofy, and it comes off as campy because it's campy.
Yep.
But everybody in the original Mortal Kombat is dead serious. Well, Johnny Cage is pretty goofy on purpose, but like they're taking everything pretty seriously.
Yeah.
Like, they're not doing it to try and be neat, to cool or tongue in cheek and stuff.
No, it's and I think that the filmmaking techniques of the 90 whatever version are not this like edgy coolness, like sheen to it. Like, it kind of looks shitty. Like the original 95 one is not really that great looking of a movie.
No.
And that just sort of helps the general tone come across. And I'm sure that movie isn't good. I haven't seen it in a while, but at least it feels I remember moments from that movie in a way that I'm not going to remember anything from this movie.
Yeah. I nothing really stood out. Well, the only thing that stood out to me in this movie is how absolutely unacceptable it is to have Goro fight a dude in a barn behind a house and then just get, punked out the way that they punked him out.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I know the games have moved past him at this point, but it's still like they didn't even like bring him in as like the big late movie reveal of the muscle guy or so. You know what I mean? They were just like, all right, Goro, you go to the barn. Kano, you go fight Sonya in front of her house or so. It just, there was no.
I was shocked that he's scarier in the 90s movie. He's
totally.
actually kind of scary in the 90s.
Yeah,
one.
he's great.
Yeah. And this one, it's
like an afterthought.
They introduce him as if he's going to be scary because he's introduced as just his shadow in the door. And Shang Tsung is like, Prince Goro, you're here to fight in the barn. And then he comes in and, that character has to be terrifying. I think that's like the whole point, just a huge forearm guy who can like hold you with his two arms and then punch you in the face with the other one. And his fight against the new character that they made up, so I can't remember, is Cole, I think his name is.
Cole Young, I
Cole
think.
Young. The fight against him just
cool young.
Too cool young.
Trying really too hard to be cool and young.
The fight against him just doesn't stick because it's not brutal or upsetting enough. Like they get away with in the first one because he never actually fights Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage punches him in the nuts and then he runs away from him.
Right.
And they never have him actually fight him in hand-to-hand combat. He just tricks him into falling off the cliff.
Beats
and
him
that's
with his mind.
It's you fight with your mind. That's it. Goro is just kind of
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah, and it's like it's really it feels like a first draft screenplay to have your entire middle section just be talking about the tournament and talking about all this backstory stuff, and then when you get to the end be like, what if we did all these fights at the same time? Like, there's no narrative build to anything.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about like a tournament movie, if that's what you're going to do, which they chose not to, is that there's a inherent narrative and drama built into the tournament progressing and who gets to fight who and all that kind of stuff.
The backstage character interactions can play out in the tournament itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in this one, it's like they talk for a bunch of minutes. Then the bad guys show up at Raiden's temple, which they could just show up there, I guess. And they talk some more, and then they have a quick fight. And Bat Lady gets cut by the buzzsaw, and Kung Lao gets his soul sucked out, and that's sad, even though we don't give a shit about that guy.
Not
and
that
then,
guy.
Yeah,
Not
and then the Shang Tsung's like, well, we'll see you guys later, and then they leave, and then it's like, okay, we've got 15 minutes left in this movie, we may as well have everybody fight each other, and it's in different places. I don't know, it's just, it feels structurally like it's just nonsense to me. Like it seemed like 2 hours of backstory instead of actually telling a story.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat, I think, has always suffered from the rules are a little hazy in the tournament. Like, there's a lot of cheating that goes on in the Mortal Kombat
You can't trust Outworld to follow the rules, man. You kidding me?
What are the Elder Gods doing? If they've had this tournament and they put so much stock into it, they don't really seem to pay attention to what's going on there with it. Because I think the only Elder God you beat is Raiden, right? I think he's the only one that's actually hanging out there with them. But
yeah, I forget. I don't know the lore that well.
It's just it just strikes me as having your plot about cheating to cheat the tournament before the tournament happens is just a bad.
It's the immediate first thing I thought of, because there's actually a bit of this built into the story, is Highlander. It's like if in Highlander you talked the entire movie about all of these convoluted rules to the game and the sword fighting, all that kind of stuff, and then it was you didn't see any of that. It was just the bad guys showing up, killing people on holy ground and shooting guns and stuff. Like, it's just, it doesn't, why even build that into the thing if you're just not gonna do anything, if you're just gonna push it all aside? Talking about that stuff doesn't make it important, you know. It's only important when it does something to the story that you're telling.
Yeah, well, it's a movie that's being constructed for the next movie, right? Like, the tournament will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point.
Yeah, after you hit X, that you accept the that you understand
for your character.
Yeah, you hit X, that you understand what you've learned in the training session, and now you have to wait 2 years for the game to start.
Yeah, and they'll, as Matt Ross says, they'll use Johnny Cage at that point.
They saved all the good stuff for the next one. Which
Johnny Cage probably would have been I would assume he has to play the Kano role in the next one. Like, he's the over the top character. They have to be more of that. They can't just, like, 80% of the characters in this are just Asian person in a different costume. Like, that's the character. It's like Raiden is the same. Raiden's might have been the same guy as Kung Lao, I suppose. Neither of them have a personality that sets themselves apart from the others. It's just their power set or whatever they look like.
My understanding, I mean, maybe this is based in the original movie exclusively, I don't know, but I always thought that Liu Kang was like the quote-unquote hero of the story, or like the main
central
good guy
character.
Yeah, and I could not tell you a damn thing about his character except that he shoots fireballs in this movie.
He even kind of sucks in the original. He's not a great central character because he's kind of just a boring, like, bland guy. You know, it's like he doesn't really have the personality that any of them have. I don't know who you would make the main character, because none of them really, like.
Well, I mean, if you plug Liu Kang into the Cole Young role, That works. But then you've just basically are doing the original movie again. But
right, and I think that's what they're trying to get away from. But
this Mortal Kombat had big canon films, Masters of the Universe energy to me, where it's like you've got these extra dimensional beings fighting this grand whatever, but you're doing it like a high school gym because it's all you could afford to fight in. You know, it had a lot of that energy to me.
Did you like? I believe they've made this up for the movie because they have to justify how this can happen. They have a name for it when they gain their superpower.
Oh
basically.
yeah, sure.
Did you like that? I think they have to do it because they're trying to make it semi-realistic, and you can't have Liu Kang throwing fireballs without explaining like, oh, he got a mystical power that did this. And
yeah, whatever. I mean, if it helps you sleep at night to explain why Kano has a laser eye.
Kano getting the laser eye was the best one. Some of them are just stupid. It's like, he gets this ability, but Kano getting a laser eye and shooting things with it was funny enough and an enjoyable way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a way to explain that stuff away, yeah, it works as good as anything else, I guess.
Yeah. I didn't care for it. It held my attention.
They did,
time.
man. You know what they did I hate it when they do this. They totally wussed out on using the original song because they use it over the end credits, but the place you use it is when Scorpion shows up over the big fight scene at the end. That's where you use it. Because I came home, I put that original movie on. That opening credits will get you ready to fight literally anything.
Yeah.
You know, you go outside, you just start throwing hands around everywhere after that thing kicks in.
No guy screams Mortal Kombat in this one either.
I know.
Which is
yeah,
Hallmark.
it's the like in Casino Royale or any of those Bond movies, the early ones with Brosnan or not Brosnan, Daniel Craig, where they were just like embarrassed to use the James Bond song for some reason.
Yeah. Best fight? Did you have a favorite fight?
Jeez. I honestly don't remember them well enough to have a favorite, I don't think.
No. They're pretty lackadaisical. I did like the reptile fight.
That was cool. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. The Scorpion and Sub-Zero at the end was pretty good,
okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing really. That's another thing where to me it's like, if you're gonna make a Mortal Kombat movie, have some like really interesting fight choreo. Like if John Wick has better fight choreography than a Mortal Kombat movie, I don't know. I feel like you might need to do something a little differently.
I feel they were fairly skimpy on the fatalities too. Like they really hit it over the head when they do it. Though, they say flawless victory or whatever, and that's what they're trying to do.
They worked that shit in so poorly in this. Like in the original one, they at least tried to kind of have it make sense.
Make the flow of like one thing into another, and actually make it seem like the characters would say that. Yeah.
But it was like Kung Lao finished a bag of fries in one gulp, and he said flawless victory, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, Kano's. You kind of need the because Kano's was always the ripping the heart out, which he does in this one, but you kind of need to go bigger in this movie than that. That's not. Jax always did the one where he punches the guy, he like squishes the guy's head. Was always the thing.
Honestly though, with Jax, also disappointed. I thought for sure he was going to knock that guy into the spikes because they're fighting on the ledge.
Yeah, on the ledge.
I mean, the head thing was cool, but push the body off into the spike. Come on, give us the spikes.
Yeah.
Can't do that, though, because it's cool, and they're saving the cool stuff for the next one.
I was hoping Jax would keep his little baby robot arms.
I was hoping it would turn out that he got, because they were talking about other realms, and they were like, we're scouring the other realms for ways to save your life. I was hoping he was going to get his robot arms from like Cyrax.
Yeah.
Or Smoke. Was that the other one? Who's
Smoke?
The,
Noob
Cyrax. No, the robot. It's because Smoke is the Noob Saibot robot. I can't remember who it's. Cyrax.
The red guy, right?
What's the red guy? I can't remember the red guy's name.
Someone in the audience know what the red guy. The palette swap for Cyrax that was red. That's the problem with those characters. Those characters are palette swaps of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, basically. So it's the same guys coming in. Yeah, that's it for those. I don't know if people have anything else that we can discuss here. If people have thoughts about Mortal Kombat. People didn't seem to have too many thoughts about Mortal Kombat. Just didn't like Cole. I think only Christian thought it was better than Kong versus Godzilla. Sector, that's it.
Sector. Yes. Sector.
Yeah.
Isn't there a blue one too? Is there 4 robots? Is it red, yellow, blue, and gray? I don't remember.
Smoke.
I just want to know when Stryker is going to show up
Yeah. Striker. Striker's
with his
Cabal. Kind
backwards hat and
With his
machine
swag.
pistol.
He looks like the lead singer of Puddle of Mud.
Yeah, he does. Hey, he's the smartest one. He brought a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's a lot of thinking. Michael Keaton is coming back as Batman for the Flash movie. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Very excited, but also it's probably going to be underwhelming in some sense. I don't know. It's such a thing that I never thought I would see, and I don't know how it's going to make its way into a cohesive story that makes sense. That I really don't have too many thoughts about it, except I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Is he going to be wearing the Batman costume?
Supposedly, I don't know.
I would've
Remains
thought
to be
not.
seen.
Yeah, I would have thought he does not, unless he's looking at a picture of himself wearing the costume as he's sitting in his home or whatever.
Did you have you watched any of Snyder's Justice League at all?
No.
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 Well,
I
you
don't
can
think
watch
I've
it.
seen Justice League, the original one.
Yeah, it's not worth it at this point.
Yeah.
You can watch it in black and white though, if you really want to get hardcore with it.
Yeah. No, I never cared really. It's so from an outsider perspective, I was surprised by how much people cared about that, and I don't know if that's the marketing that went into it. Like a lot of things now, it feels like it burns bright for 5 minutes, and then no one cares about it anymore after that. But it never really. People like, there's a longer version of a terrible movie. You should watch it.
Got to see it.
Yeah.
Got to say, I mean, for me, I'm always fascinated by that stuff. If there's an alternate cut that's like substantially altered, I'm always interested to see how things could be different. I thought it was a great marketing idea for HBOMax because, like, instead of spending $70 million on, Facebook ads or something, they spent it on an actual product that they could push during a year where they weren't actually making any new stuff. Yeah. So I thought it was whether or not it paid off for them, I don't know. But I thought it was and it's nice to see, knowing what Snyder went through his personal life and everything and how he got kind of unceremoniously pushed off the movies, kind of. It's nice to see him get to finish what he started, even if it's not something I particularly want to see more of.
Yeah. And that's fair. I don't have a problem with it existing. I was just surprised by its reach. What is this character's point of view a better question than the more traditional, what is this character's personality and traits? Because I hear the latter a lot.
Well, I think what is getting lost in translation when that stuff comes up is a lot, and not being able to understand what the character wants out of the story, like what their drive is, because usually the drive can inform the thing that they're after, should inform the actions that they take, which then informs the character, because you learn character through action. But if the thing that they're after is unclear or muddled or not really that interesting, then the actions that they're going to take are not going to be that interesting, and the character's not going to be that interesting. So if you want to call a point of view, I think you can, but I think it more comes down to just having like a clear, solid drive for your character of what they're after, what's the thing that they're going for, what happens when they get it, what happens when they don't get it. That's what makes interesting characters and interesting stories.
Yeah. I'm just kind of hashing this out. What is the character's point of view better than what is this character's personality and traits? So, I suppose from a writing perspective, it would be easier to understand what a character's point of view is rather than a character's, like, you can apply this to Discovery, I think, pretty easily. I would say that's a show that I know the character's personality and traits, but I don't understand what anyone thinks about anything, or like why they're doing the things that they choose to do.
Yeah.
Even Saru, who I think is fairly well drawn, suffers from that. I couldn't tell you. Maybe you can later now because you get more, like, Saru is the traditional captain mold, I suppose, but like Burnham would be a good example. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know what Burnham thinks about anything. I know that she has actions that she chooses to take, and I know that she's sort of like headstrong and rebellious. Those are her traits, her personality traits. But I don't know why she has those traits and what they're in service of, and what her ultimate
Right.
desire is out of to get anything done. And that's what makes her kind of an inconsistent character, I suppose.
Right.
Example: Odo has an authoritarian viewpoint. Hoshi gets nervous sometimes. Yeah, I mean, the Enterprise characters just are traits. They're just a. You don't know what those characters are about. They just have the worst characters on that show. Just have the one stupid trait that you cannot spin into a story. Like Hoshi's nervous. Mayweather was born in space. Okay, let's go write a script about that. But DS9, I would say yes, is a better. I could predict what Odo would think about something more than I can predict what Hoshi would think about a random subplot or plot or anything like that.
Yeah, and to what I was saying, in that situation, you've got Odo. What Odo wants in a situation is born of his viewpoint, if you want to call it that. He's more interested in law and order and stuff from that point of view, whereas Hoshi, I don't know what the hell she wants in any given. Like, there's nothing to apply to a story that in certain. Just adding her into an equation makes the story more interesting. Unfortunately, just because that's how she's written. Yep. Whereas Odo, there are so many different people with so many different wants on Deep Space Nine. Any combination of them is going to be interesting.
Right.
Enterprise, it's just, they're just kind of there. And honestly, same for Discovery for the most part. Like, there's Discovery probably has more interesting characters at this point than Enterprise, but they haven't really done much with them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Hoshis on that show.
Yes. A whole lot of Hoshis. Thank you, Cardinal, for the super chat. It's very kind of you. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, and when people wonder, I would say that when people wonder why characters are not used as much, like Mayweather, why Mayweather is not really used at all, I think a lot of it stems from the setup there, where writers on the show come in and you have no idea what Mayweather is about.
Right.
So why are you going to write about this character? It's like he flies the ship. Like, I don't know what else to do with him. Where if you came into season 3 of something like DS9, all of those characters, I think you could come up more easily with if they gave you a plot and a character and they say you have to stick this character into this plot, you have a much better idea of, I know how that character would react in this situation, and I'll go write them. Enterprise, I don't think it's anything against the actors or anything that they have. It's just that they were so poorly conceived that that's all you've got with them, and it's not anything. Thank you, Mercer.
Yeah, thanks. I think
I wouldn't mind if you got a bridge. Is a bridge cat like that fat cat on Discovery? If so,
sure.
Feel free. But I don't like that cat. I don't like Bridge.
Teach them how to fly the ship.
Yeah.
I think that's why they run into this problem a lot, where they try to go like, okay, we don't do a lot with Mayweather or Hoshi or whoever. Let's do a Mayweather episode, and then they have to come up with all this crazy backstory shit that none of it ever sticks, and it doesn't make the character more interesting, because you're not taking a formed character and inserting it into that situation. You're trying to make the character based on all this background shit.
Yeah. It's
so
the
like
Hoshi exile example that we discovered.
Yeah. Or the
Beauty and the Beast one.
The one where Mayweather goes back to his parents' ship. Cool. Yeah. Great. Fine. But like, he's not bringing anything interesting to that situation, really. Compare that to when they do that with someone like Odo. When Odo goes back to the Founders, or you find out more about the Founders. Is that what they're called? The Founders?
Founders.
Odo is bringing with him a fully formed character that works in direct opposition to what the Founders think. Yep. So you're getting a story, you're getting character out of this, instead of trying to build a character by scrambling for backstory. Or like the... Shit. What the hell is the second Dax's name?
Ezri.
Esri, the Esri Dax episode where any episode where a character who they haven't written much about goes and visits their family is usually them flailing for a character.
They tried with Esri. They were desperately trying to get something to work for Esri, and it just didn't. No, I 100% agree with that. Thank you, Nerdporial Lifeform, for the super chat. You just uploaded a layman's guide to Star Trek: The Original Series. Check it out. People can. You basically paid for an ad on this, which is interesting. No
we should encourage more of that.
Does anyone probably any self-published memoirs that they'd like?
Yeah. What are you guys selling? Let's take some checks.
How is it a layman's guide, I guess, would be my question about that. But people can check it out if they're interested in other original series content. For the Voyager Fund. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. That's very kind of you. And I'll put it into the pile. What else? I don't think I missed any questions. Oh, we didn't really talk. We've kind of talked about this. Do you know if Silent Hill is on the Rotten Tomatoes horror list?
I
assume not.
I don't believe it is. Let me check really quick while you're talking.
I only bring it up because with the Mortal Kombat movie coming out, I was trying to think of good video game movies.
There are very few of them.
There's not many whatsoever. And I think I remember Silent Hill being pretty good. The movie being pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
At least.
It is not on the list.
Not on the list. I'm not surprised by that. And that's really like I don't think it needs to talk to that much about it, but it's like the reason that the Mortal Kombat thing didn't work super well is that the concept works for a game, and the game is built around the fatalities and sort of the gratuitousness of it. Like that's the whole point. And the movies just don't work because it's trying to take something that's fairly simple and not thought out and turn it into something that you can think things out of. But like Nerdporial was saying, the Super Mario Brothers is a great movie. I would disagree. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I don't remember it being good. And I don't know what the best Super Mario. Have you seen any of the new Sonic or the new Detective Pikachu or anything like that? I haven't seen any of those, and I don't know if they'd be good. But I don't think there's ever been a great. He was kidding. I don't think there's ever been a great video game movie.
Well,
Silent Hill just made sense to me. As if you're familiar with Silent Hill, I think you could see why Silent Hill could be a good horror movie.
I remember the first Resident Evil being pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think we've talked about this on previous shows. The inherent problem with video game movies is you're taking something that is at its core a interactive experience and turning it into a passive experience. Yeah. And so games will, not to interrupt, but games are able to not service narrative in exchange for interactivity, and it's fine. That's a trade-off that you're willing to make. Or on the other hand, the narrative can be so complex and over the top and ridiculous, but you don't mind because it's like leading to another part of the game you get to play.
Right, you just wash over you and go on. Yeah.
Nobody plays Assassin's Creed to learn about the lore of the company or whatever, Yeah. And I think that's the problem is they're not presenting these things in a way that is new or different. They're not adding anything. They're actually taking something away from the experience. Yep. So you're not going to get a really great video game movie until they find a way to add to the experience. I don't mean like making it active or something like that, but just presenting something in a way that you haven't seen it before, or that doesn't try to go too far off the mark. Like that, like there's Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter for even. The story is built into it. You don't have to go crazy. Yeah, it's a tournament movie. Yeah. Those almost always work. There's like just drama built into the concept. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. If you want to, whether it's fighting for the fate of the world or arm wrestling to get your son back, tournament movies tend to work. It's when you start gluing shit to the side of it where it's like, well, what if M. Bison actually was trying to take over the world and he had Blanca working for him trying to create Dalzim working for him, trying to create super soldiers, which accidentally creates Blanca, and then Ryu is a cameraman who works with Chun-Li or some shit. It's like, just put them in a thing and have them fight each other. It's not hard.
No, that's why
you want to see someone you recognize as that character doing cool shit. That's all you need.
I feel that's why Mortal Kombat is surprising, because Mortal Kombat works better, in my opinion, than Street Fighter would, because Mortal Kombat is the tournament plus extremely gratuitous violence on top of it. Like Street Fighter doesn't really have that. Street Fighter's a little bit goofier. Street Fighter's the better game because it's technically sound as a fighter in a way that Mortal Kombat never was. But
I mean, you've got. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, you've got built into Mortal Kombat. There's a heightened level of tension because people might die.
Right. Yeah.
You know, there's no guarantee that Sonya's gonna live.
Right. Yeah. That's the basis of it. Just want to say thank you to Dustin Neely for listening to you guys for years. I feel I owe you a few bucks. Prisoner Podcast needs more love.
Thank you. Appreciate
Go
it.
listen now, Minions. You would be able to. The website expired, unfortunately. Yeah. I have to re-up all those episodes.
Much like everything else related to The Prisoner, it's difficult to find now. Although we got to put it back up. It's easier to watch than ever before. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now.
I'll put it back up at some point. I need to get I'll get all the MP3s and re-upload them, or they're uploaded. I just have to find them. But thank you, Dustin. I was going to say something. Yeah, it's the interactive nature. I think people would generally think that because video games and movies are played on the same screen, they translate to each other, and they don't. Yeah, I don't know what the best, because they're coming out with the Last of Us series and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if it would ever really work.
Yeah, that's another one where it's like, well, that one you even got. I know a lot of people really love the story for that one, and it's like, well,
but
you're actively taking away the experience of playing it, so can only be worse.
Yeah, it's also one of the things. Like, my understanding of the Last of Us story is that it's good for a video game. You know, it's not a transcendent, like, never heard this before narrative. It's just, this is video games rarely go this good, and therefore it's worth rewarding. I would like, your name's in yellow. I'm just trying to think, because it's difficult. I don't know if I've said before, but I really like video games. If I were forced to choose, I'd probably choose video games over movies and TV and stuff like that. I just like, I find myself drawn to activity stuff. I like being active in what I'm doing, and sometimes the passivity of movies annoys me in some way. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like I'd rather be doing something while I'm watching the movie than just watching the movie, and the game kind of fills that void for me. But they'll never make a good video game movie. I don't think. They're too different.
Well, I think this is kind of a cheap answer because it's not really a video. It's not actually a video game, and I've heard other people say it, so it's not an original thought. I think the best video game movie is probably Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you get that experience of dying while you're trying to accomplish something and getting a chance to do it again. And finally, you beat the final boss and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
What's interesting about that, though, is like if they had called that movie, Mega Man.
Yep.
Would
press reset or something?
Yeah. Or just like if they took an actual video, an IP, and made that type of movie, I don't know if it works as well because that movie works because it's a novel concept. But if you're doing something that is literally lifting from like Doom, I didn't see the movie, but I know there's a sequence that goes first person like the game. And when that movie came out, all I heard about was people talking about how stupid that scene was. And it's like, well, you got to do something. Why are you doing this? I guess you have to, I don't know what you're looking for, I guess. I think that's the thing is I don't know exactly what people are looking for out of a video game movie.
I mean, another video game, and thank you, Samuel Custer, for the I Want to Warhammer 40K movie. I feel that could go deep and dark. They had what's the Blizzard? Warcraft. They had that Warcraft movie that came and went, and no one even saw that.
Well, that was one that was huge in China. Well, it did really well in China, but it didn't make any money here.
Yeah. That probably plays into the Asian love of those style of games too. They're just big in Asia, big here too, but they're particularly big there. Yeah, there was another game. Oh, we watched Bandersnatch, which is basically like those Telltale games now, which is choose your own adventure, which is maybe the most interactive you'll ever manage to get with until we get to a VR level movie where you're actually in the movie and taking part in it. That's probably as interactive as you're going to get in a movie. Yeah. I don't see that being I don't think that'll ever be a genre. It'll just be a style exercise that they did on Netflix once or twice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see a lot of merit in making movies out of most video games. I think there's more merit to make video games out of movies because you're adding something new to the experience. Yeah. Like that Ghostbusters game that came out a few years ago was amazing for me because you actually get to live and be active in the actual, like, looks like the Ghostbusters world. You get to do Ghostbuster stuff. Yeah. Same with Batman, with Arkham Knight and Spider-Man and stuff. But that's adding something.
Yeah. Somewhat ironically, I think video games might be in a better place than movies are currently. You know, they weren't, but as an industry, they're at least toe-to-toe. Like, people watch big Twitch streams more than they watch the Oscars and stuff like that. It's just, it's what it is. It wasn't that way. Video games always felt like they had... I think video games went through... Probably a big reason for their badness was their desperate nature to try to crack into movies to like justify themselves or something. So they're like, we need video games to be movies because that means that we've made it as a property, an intellectual property. And I don't think they need that anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, you're seeing the opposite where it's like you've got a Suicide Squad movie coming out, but along with that, the more exciting element is that, Rockstar's doing a Suicide Squad game. Yeah. You know?
Yep. I'd love to see a great writer.
I was just going to say, I don't need to see a Grand Theft Auto movie.
Yeah, you know? I'm surprised they haven't, actually. Maybe Rockstar values that property too much and like, you're just going to fuck this up, so I'm not going to let you have it. And they probably make more money than they would off the movie. I'd love to see a great writer and director tackle Final Fantasy VI in a Lord of the Rings style trilogy. Red Dead Redemption would be, like, yeah. Red Dead had a great. We're probably talking too much about this, but like I'm playing Red Dead 2 right now, and Red Dead 2 is great, but it wouldn't work as a movie because so much of it is the fact that it takes so long to beat that you really get to absorb the character, John Marston. Like you're forced to live with him for a long time, and it works in a way that. If you turned Red Dead into a Western movie, it would just be the most generic Western that you've ever seen. And it's like, this is not interesting. Yeah. Who would play Kefka? Jim Carrey, I think.
I don't know who that is, so I'll take your word for it.
Kefka's the villain of Final Fantasy VI. Kind of a laughing clown. Maze Hunter 3D was a guy who wakes up and finds himself in a maze in space. He finds a rusty metal bar. His only weapon he uses to kill monsters as he makes his way to the bottom of the maze. Sounds like Dead Space too, which is another game. Anyone who can successfully play the Joker, I suppose. So, who was the Joker in Suicide Squad? Jared Leto, right? We'll get him. Sam Custer says Metal Gear Solid. Did you ever play Metal Gear Solid?
No. I'm aware of its reputation, and I know people love it, but I never really played it. It could be.
I think if Kojima had the option, he would have made it a movie in the first place and not a game. Maybe that would work. It's still so fucking strange and weird. Like it's that video game story just doesn't make sense. You know, it's just a bunch of noun salad and stuff like that.
I read Tim's comment there quickly, and I thought he said an R2-D2 movie would be the equivalent of an awful remake, and I was like, yeah, it would be awful. I mean, they're probably going to do it on Disney Plus as a 6-episode miniseries or something. But
who's the worst Star Wars character that could get a Disney Plus series? Is it R2? Like, who could do the most damage to a character by having their own series?
I see. Because I mean, I feel like Jar Jar's pretty high.
Jar Jar would be,
but he's
He's already
Honestly,
done.
if Jar Jar got a series, at the end of it, people would be like, Jar Jar is pretty awesome.
Pretty great
Like
character.
you could use it.
That's a Red Dead Redemption turn for Jar Jar right there.
Yeah. But yeah, probably R2 and C-3PO would probably be pretty bad.
Yeah, the droids could be really damaged. Who else could it be?
Max. I was going to say Max Rebo, but I'd love to see a Max Rebo movie about the hard gigging life of a cantina band.
Are they? Do they have a Palpatine story in the works?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Would that be good or bad? I thought that my first thought would be bad, but I think it might be good.
You know, my thoughts on the if anybody who hasn't listened to our coverage of the prequels should go back and do that. But my big thing with the prequels was I wish they had focused on Palpatine because it makes more sense to have Palpatine be the central arc character than it does to focus on Anakin. But what are you gonna do? But I hear everything after Return of the Jedi is no longer canon now that Disney owns it or something.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
That's because people didn't like the last movie, so they're gonna quietly wipe everything from existence now.
Yeah, the JJ stuff. You mean is
yeah.
Good?
Yeah, because a woman was involved, so it doesn't count anymore.
Washed away, just like every menstrual menses or whatever.
Oh boy.
Marsh McCall, I know Voyager hasn't undergone a full review, but based on what I've heard, Star Trek Voyager is underwhelming. Is there any one or two things that could be improved to save Voyager? We'll have to see when we get to Voyager.
If we get to Voyager.
If we get to Voyager. I know the Patreon, we're going to lose some because the month is coming around. Everyone drops. A couple of people always drop at the month, so we're back to square one. A Jabba the Hutt movie.
I was going to say Jabba the Hutt would be bad.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad.
Like the rise of Jabba the Hutt. Like
from young slugs.
Listen, it's Game of Thrones, except instead of Jon Snow, it's a giant slug man.
I imagine it would be a huge focus on his maneuverability. Like very early, it's just he's incredibly fast or whatever early on in the series. He's like Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, I guess there could be a few bad ones. Who's a Star Trek character that would be worse? Who would be a Star Trek character that would be made worse?
Data,
yeah.
I don't think I need to see Data the early years.
Yeah, Data could be done badly. He's probably the I think everyone else would benefit in some ways if it was done well, but Data would definitely be bad. Yeah, I'll go with Data. I've always wondered about the history and the background of the Hutts.
Well, have I got a series for you, my friend? No, it's actually one of those things that they've. I mean, I never followed the expanded stuff, so I would be shocked if they never touched on that. But it is kind of like one of those. It's kind of a big structural system of Star Wars that they've never really touched on, because the Hutts clearly have a lot of influence.
Yeah.
Over Tatooine at the very least, and they've never really delved into it at all.
Yeah. Maybe for the best. Mercer said Gonk Droid. I don't know who Gonk Droid is.
I think that's the one that looks like a trash can that's always walking around on the Death Star.
Oh, okay.
Gray.
Yeah, the gray with the red circle on the top of him. How much more money is needed for Voyager? I think
how much you got?
Yeah, I think depends how deep your pockets go. I think we're at $8.50, so it's $50 away. Maybe it's less, depending on when the month resets, but I think it's about $50 away. Thank you, patrons. Samuel is a captain tier supporter, has been for a long time, so thank you very much. I think we're done. I don't really have anything else to say. I don't think everyone else has any other questions. Do you have anything you want to say, Clay?
Dustin said Robert Rodriguez wants to make an escape from New York. I've heard they want to remake it. Just do a sequel and have Kurt Russell do it. I'm much more interested in Old Man Snake than I am someone else trying to do a Kurt Russell impression.
An appropriately aged.
Yeah. What the hell? Yeah. I'd rather see if it worked. Harrison Ford's been making a late career plane money doing that. So I don't know why Kurt Russell can't do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. He agrees. He gives us a thumbs up. They got to make an Operation Mindcrime film based on the Queensryche album.
Oh boy.
2112 Rush.
After they do the expanded version of Queen of the Reich music video as a 2-hour movie, then they can do Operation Mindcrime.
Yeah, I guess we're done. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Here's talk about Godzilla vs. Kong in the Mortal Kombat movie. What's the next? I think the next HBO movie I had not heard of. I didn't know what it was supposed to be. Do you know off the top of your head what it is?
I don't.
Not sure what it is, but yeah, not terribly impressed with it yet. Although I'll go out with this thought. We did sign up for HBOMax, and I'm on the verge of considering canceling Netflix, which I thought would be impossible, but we don't watch Netflix anymore.
Yeah, I probably watch Netflix except for Enterprise, which is I watch it on Enterprise. I watch Enterprise on Netflix. I think I probably watch it less than most of the other ones. Yeah, like I would keep HBO, I would keep Shudder, and Amazon and Hulu. I don't know. Yeah, Netflix is not really doing much for me.
No,
these
for
days.
us it's Disney and
Oh yeah, Disney. That's a big one. Yeah.
It's Disney and Amazon. Amazon for movies, really, and I can watch Star Trek on Amazon, so that's the only thing I was using for Netflix. But it's just surprising, just because we've been Netflix customers for so long. But I guess that's how fickle my heart is. Really, it's like you got to give me something I'm interested in watching. And if this son of a bitch just bumped us over into Voyager.
Well,
territory,
hey, you didn't mention the catch. This is not we start Voyager tomorrow.
Don't do
how
any new
badly
lines of credit.
Yeah, how badly do you want this? Because you got to hold out until we finish Enterprise. So,
well, thank you, Samuel. I haven't checked it yet. We'll go out on that. Leave people wondering what happened to Voyager, and then as we never podcast again after this. Yeah, final thing I would say I like HBO, Amazon, Disney, CBS sucks, Paramount Plus sucks. I don't watch Peacock. I used Peacock to see what it was, and I'm like, I'm never going to use this again.
yeah, I use Peacock for wrestling, but
yeah,
that's about it. It has commercials. You got to pay for it. It's got commercial.
Oh, even with paying, it's got commercials? It's got commercials to just log in and see it. Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Don't use Hulu. I do like HBO Max, though. I like this. I was worried about HBO because I liked their stuff before all the streaming kicked in. And I was like, how is HBO going to maintain their cachet in the universe? And they've done it by just having shitty movies come out every month, but ones that people have to watch and talk about. So I guess that's the way that it'll work.
I think it's I hope HBO is like really praying for movie theaters to start opening up again, though, because like I don't know how much of a favor it's doing the industry to be like, yeah, we probably don't need this. After you watched Mortal Kombat, did you say, man, I wish I had spent $15 on that and had to go see that in the theater?
No, I was glad that it was streaming.
Yeah. Like Kong vs. Godzilla, I'm really happy I saw it in the theater because I think it is warranted to see it on a giant screen for something like that. But like if I had watched that on streaming, I don't think I would have said, damn, I wish I had taken half of my day to go see it at a theater.
I just hold the iPad really close to my face.
Yeah, you get one of those like those really long hats where you put the thing in the front. It's like, oh my God, it's like being at the theater.
It's exactly like being at the theater. And then I have Amy sit next to me and talk on her phone. And I'm like, this is just like the theater. I've never had a better experience than being right here with this iPad glued to my face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Samuel. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. James Monroe, Jim Hussein, and yours truly. Well, happy birthday. Is that the 28th?
Well, you know what they all have in common? They all love cars.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you for being on the Discord. Patreon.com/the Penske Valley if you want to support us there, like Samuel. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody. Mercer, Everyone who super chatted, I can't see the super chats anymore. Samuel, Matt Ross was there. Dustin was there. Nerdporial, Lifeform, Mercer, Cardinal Doomsday. I think that's everybody. If I miss anybody, I apologize. But thanks very much for your generosity. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back with the next Enterprise episode, which is Twilight tomorrow, right? Yeah, it's Twilight tomorrow. And the Sisters came out today for the Rotten Horror Picture Show.
Mm-hmm.
Which I posted the true story of, or the inspiration for that, which is horrific. I imagine it's
better,
judging by the podcast, probably scarier than the actual movie.
Better than
itself.
the movie, unfortunately, yeah.
Check out those, and Star Trek's tomorrow. Rotten Horrors today. Badass will be back at some point. That's it. See you guys.